Hi, everyone. We are going to look at L'Ardois JaQ, which is a Nova Scotian rum from the Below the Salt distillery that I discussed in the previous video, where I gave you a bit of a distillery profile because I felt if I'd included it in this one, then the video would have just been too long. Basically, just to recap as briefly as I possibly can, uh, Below the Salt is a distillery in Nova Scotia with offices in Cape Breton that has a double retort pot still and is run by a gentleman called Greg Culp, who is actually a maritime sea captain. And he has always had a love for rum. He's traveled extensively in the Caribbean. He interned at a Cognac House in France to learn more about the stuff. He's been distilling on his own in his backyard, whether it was beer or gin or vodka, whatever it is that his homemade little trapiche was capable of doing. And as the years wound on, he decided he was going to create a distillery of his own. Now, it is a fairly recent vintage. I think it's only about 2 or 3 years old. And he's just one of these wild, crazy experimenters, very much in the vein of all these guys in the UK and the United States who have these micro distilleries that pretty much do everything that they can possibly do and experiment like their pants are on fire just to see what the hell is going to come out the other end. So the L'Ardois JaQ, the photo is of a big 6'6" guy called Lurch, who's sitting in a bathtub that they finally found big enough to fit him. And just to give you an idea of how big this bathtub is, although it isn't completely relevant, both Greg Culp and his partner Vicky Perseg, who took the photograph, could fit into it and still have space left over, while Lurch kind of like just fits into it by himself. Just one of those weird little anecdotes. Anyway, she took the photo and they slapped it on the label, and Bob's your uncle, that's what it's called. Now, L'Ardois JaQ has its own little story. You can read the review that's going to be put up simultaneously with this video to get a better flavor of it. But the website does have some information on it that we'll be able to tell you. But it's a bit of a tall tale, like Paul Bunyan or Pecker's Bill or something like that, some larger-than-life kind of guy. And they just slapped a name on it. And, of course, there's a bit of a pun in the Maritimes about what L'Ardois actually means. So I'll leave you to discover that because it is actually quite interesting. Now, the rum itself, it comes off a double retort pot still, as I said. The source is not molasses. It's actually cane juice honey, or more specifically, rendered cane juice crystals from Guatemala and the Demerara cane juice. Specifically not refined. So it's more akin to panela or jaggery for that matter. It's still nutrient rich. And then it's re-liquefied, rendered down to honey, and then fermented for a few days. The exact period is actually not something I know. And I think, as far as I'm aware, that it may have some special yeast, but there's a bit of commercial in there as well. Now, in this case, you might notice that the rum is actually just the slightest bit yellow. And that's because it was chucked into a cask for about 3 months, 6 weeks, I think it was, 6 to 8 weeks, just long enough to put a little color, but not enough to appreciably alter the flavor profile, which is something that Mr. Culp really wants to do. He loves that original distillate flavor and doesn't want to dilute it too much with severe barrel influence, which is another reason, by the way, he tends to use very old barrels that have very little to offer except maybe bad advice. Right, because he does like his natural flavors. And then he distills the lees to get even more of that out. And what comes out at the end of the day is really quite something, even at 40%, right? So when you sniff it, man, this thing's got real character. And that's something that I said right away in my original tasting notes, which was done in some flea bag hotel where he and I met, like we were dealers exchanging illicit merchandise or something. But it does have character. I mean, it starts off with, I don't know, forgive the poetry here, but the aromas of forests and sun-dappled jungle glades that are steaming after a warm rain, loam, wet earth, brine, mud, waterlogged bark. And that's not really unpleasant at all. It's more like a deep, mossy herbal scent that channels cane rum in a fascinatingly different way, which is really quite interesting. And that's just the start. You've also got a little bit of sour in there. The fruits make the entrance. Yes, you get a little bit of nail polish and acetones, ripe green grapes, apples, tart peaches, overripe mangoes, the sweet yellow Thai kind is what I'm thinking about. Some light florals and sweet sugarcane water, and there's actually also some ashes and dusty cardboard. I mean, really? Yeah, but it is. I mean, the nose really presses most of the buttons we would expect in a young or unaged Agricola from the islands with a twist. And it is made in Canada. So, I mean, it definitely has its own vibe going there. And the palate is also really good. Now, it's 40%, and that means it's a little bit thin, and initially you don't get much. Stick with it though, because after a bit, it kind of opens up on the palate, and it reminds me of fresh hay drying in the sunshine after a rain, honey, sugar water, sweet corn, green peas, that water you have in the can once you kind of like open it up, that kind of thing. And yet at the same time, it's completely rum-like. Moreover, after a while, we also get fruits, watermelons, brine, a few Moroccan red olives, and the ashes and cardboard come back again. Just a touch of the acetone and a subtly powerful finish that simply just stays there. And it has that Laban, sweet and sour tart notes, yogurt, ashes, lemon zest, which is really neat to see because I just really do like that faint citrus line. And of course, again, some delicate flowers. So like I said, it's a lot. And I think as a sipping rum, it's really, really nice. Even if the company website suggests that it's something of a mixer's ingredient, good for a caipirinha or a pisco sour mojito, or even some tequila-based drinks, the way the website calls it. But for me, I would sip it because it's just such a fascinating little drink of its own. It has that versatility of purpose that I think makes for a really good rum. And even Taros, given that it's 40%, can cut their teeth on it without alienating the more sophisticated people who like, more exacting taste in their rums. So what I'm saying is that it works on several levels at once. Now, I'm going to score this 86 points because I was just so absolutely fascinated by it and because I really genuinely liked it a lot. And I've tasted it like about 3 or 4 times now just to prepare for this review, which is already far too long, But to my mind, the man has experimented. He's added the eye of newt and the tail of toad to his cauldron. He stirred, added some spider webs and his own personal brand of magic. And then he came up with a rum that he himself wanted to drink. And does it ever work on so many different levels? I'm going to go right out there and buy pretty much everything else the guy has done. And in point of fact, I got my order in and he knows I want it. I'm that impressed with it. And I think 86 points is pretty much where I want to go with it. And I really hope that distilleries like these get more press in the days and months and years to come, because there is a craft distillery movement emerging in Canada. And perhaps it lacks the quantity and the press that and the rum festivals, I guess, that so make the UK and the European independent bottling craft movement be so popular. But there is something here in Canada, and I think we could support it if we want to. By all means, give it a shot. And I hope that if you ever get a chance to try these and buy them, ship them to wherever you are, they are extremely affordable and can't say enough good things about it. So, good on you, Mr. Culp, Captain Culp. And I will talk to you all next time. Take care, everybody.